What's up, War Room? Welcome back. First War Room of the offseason, fresh off a nice 42 minutes of ranting about the barrage of Jets candidates for head coach and general manager. Joe Caporoso, Connor Rogers back for War Room tonight, or this morning. We are going to go through the draft board because it's finalized now. And Connor, if you didn't know, is the best draft guy out there. So we're going to talk about the draft and the Jets picking seventh and who's picking in front of them and what the options are going to be. We're also going to answer a few of your Discord questions tied to some of the head coach, GM candidates, and some stuff for the offseason. So plenty to cover. CR, how you doing? How you feeling after getting your Rex Ryan and Josh McCown rants off the chest?
It was fun to have the McCown one in the holster. I actually slept on it. I was texting Gelbs because I was like, I got like a dark horse for you, and I just need to kind of unload this all right now. And just to kind of, it's like when a comedian tries their material at home. I felt like that. I was like, I've asked around about this one. Like, I really think he's being overlooked when there's a list of 13 people. Someone's going to get buried. But feeling good. I'm at the phase though where I kind of want to press the fast forward button because when you have potentially 13 people to interview for head coach, it means it's going to take a little while, especially with what you can and can't do for playoff teams, other teams, all that stuff. But we just have to be patient. And I think the Jets process, probably changed a little bit too when it became clear that their number one guy in Vrabel was going to be looking towards New England or the Raiders, whatever it may be. And now it becomes a truly wide open board.
Yep. It can go in a million different directions, and I'll give two quick tidbits here before I get into the draft board, and we'll count it down 1 to 7 to the Jets pick, and you can give us an early sense of what you think is going to happen. One, I think it's likely, hopefully, that Gelbs is our guest on episode 1 of Streets of Fire, if we can lock that in. That's a behind the paywall spoiler for War Room, so look out for that. We will have a guest in every episode. That will be exciting. I think he'll be his premiere on the feed too, an overdue one. We're fired up.
Yes, very excited. I will nudge him, and we will definitely get Gelbs on the feed.
And then why this is a terrifying time, and I'm sure you're doing this too, is like you start looking at the calendar and you're like, well, when is the news going to drop that the Jets hired a head coach and a general manager? Is it going to be like when I'm at my niece's communion? Is it going to be when I'm on a plane?
Oh yeah.
Is it going to be when I'm running from a hotel room in Midtown Manhattan, like when they signed Mike Williams? There's got to be a way to give us some kind of a heads up. We're trying to set up emergency podcasts here. We want to be prepared. It always happens at the worst possible time. I expect it to be at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday morning or sometime when both you and I are on a flight to different countries.
That's very likely. The flying aspect's my big fear. I typically, number one, unless I have urgent work matters, I'm not a huge connect to Wi-Fi guy on planes anymore because I've just hit the point where any little window you can get of detaching from the internet / your phone is the biggest win ever. And those are so few and far between. So that would be a disaster to be in the air for however many hours and land and realize you've totally missed the giant news window. And this is a crazy time of year. Like you said, I mean, it really,
you almost
really
got to just hunker down. We can't go anywhere.
You feel that way, but then, the end of the month, I'm at the Senior Bowl. The week after that, I'm at the Super Bowl. Before you know it, it's the Combine, spring training. There's so much, and obviously the Jets will hire a coach before that. Maybe the coach will actually be interested in going to the fucking Combine this year.
Imagine that.
Rather than dragging them by the ear onto the plane for 8 hours.
Maybe just don't play 72 holes in one day. Play 36 and go to the Combine.
Crazy.
What about that? Good luck, Jacksonville, though. Anyway.
Hey, don't rule that out.
My worst plane story was I was flying back. This is the year the Jets signed Carl Lawson instead of Trey Hendrickson, who has 200 sacks every season.
Which we loved the Lawson signing.
Hands up.
You can't predict torn Achilles, but still.
So he was having that incredible summer. He was dominating everybody. And I basically tweeted Carl Lawson is going to be incredible this year or something to that extent. About 6 minutes later, he tore his ACL in practice.
Yes.
And I got 7,000 tweets blaming me for him getting hurt because of the karma of saying he was going to be good while I was on a flight and the Wi-Fi was coming and going. And I was like, you know what? I just shouldn't have been on my phone. I should have just not had Wi-Fi. So I try to do that going forward. Anyway, to the draft. This is how it settles. Titans, number 1. Browns, number 2. Giants, number 3. Shout out Drew Lock. Patriots, number 4. Shout out Joe Milton. Jaguars, 5th. Vegas 6th. And for the first time ever in franchise
Strange.
history, I believe, the New York Jets are picking 7th. So my only note before I throw it to you and what you expect to come of these first 7 picks is what I always try to remember is when we start having these conversations, there's always names that people are like, well, there's no way they're going to be there. And then it actually gets to the draft and they end up being there. This happened last year with Olu Fashanu. We're like, well, it's too low. They're not going to be in the Fashanu range. They ended up trading back and getting him. Happened a few years before that with Garrett Wilson. They're like, probably not going to be able to get him at 10 if they don't get him at 4. They got Garrett Wilson. So I would remind that to all people where when Connor or someone else out there does a mock or I do a mock or anyone does a mock, like don't just write off a name, especially at number 7, because a lot of stuff could still change. But what are your thoughts on how this board landed, what the teams in front of the Jets are likely to do, and who does that leave them with to consider?
Well, it's not disaster, right? I was fearing, 9. I would say 9 is where it starts to get scary. Being ahead of the Panthers could be huge because they are just a no-brainer team, in my opinion, to take Mason Graham. And now I think there's a world easily where Jacksonville or the Raiders do. But we say this all year, and then a guy, slips past the team you expected, and I didn't think Mason Graham could make it past Carolina. And now there's a world where, hey, it's unlikely he's there at 7 for the Jets, but it's not insane. So that's kind of interesting. And now, so here's what I think you're rooting for if you're a Jet fan, honestly. You're rooting for Penn State to basically win the national title or Drew Aller to just play out of his mind. Because then he's going to change his mind and he's going to enter the draft and he'll be picked before the Jets pick. So that's potentially 3 quarterbacks in front of the Jets. Potentially. It's not a sure thing that Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders go in front of the Jets, but it's, quarterbacks go. So that would set it up where you'd have some combination of the 6 picks in front of the Jets to be quarterbacks. And yeah, the Jets need one, but in this class, it's not like you're sitting there and you're going like, man, I can't believe we just missed on Jaden Daniels or Drake May, whatever it may be. So we've seen the Jets miss on Trevor Lawrence, whatever it may be. And then you're kind of playing the game of like, okay, one of those 6 picks is also probably going to be Travis Hunter. So we're probably going to get a good player because that means Abdul Carter, edge rusher from Penn State, Tet McMillan, freakish wide receiver from Arizona, Mason Graham from Michigan. Like there's good players still in the top 7. And I always like doing this for fun. Since 2014, the players picked 7th overall, and this is a roller coaster, this one. 2024, J.C. Latham, which we all on this podcast are very thankful of because the Jets got Olu Fashanu because of that. 2023, Tyree Wilson for the Raiders. 2022, Evan Neal to the Giants. Don't worry, it gets better. Penei Sewell to the Lions. Derek Brown to the Panthers. Josh Allen, pass rusher to the Jaguars. Josh Allen, quarterback to the Bills. Those 4 in a row, like those are all pro kind of players. Yes. Mike Williams to the Chargers, old friend. DeForest Buckner to the 49ers, all pro. Kevin White to the Bears, disaster. Jesus. Mike Evans to the Bucks, Hall of Famer. So history tells you this is this extreme of the spectrum here is kind of wild to me because it's like colossal busts, Kevin White and Evan Neal, but then Hall of Famer Mike Evans, Penei Sewell could be a Hall of Famer one, like the Josh Allen of the Bills, Josh Allen of the Jags. It's such like the variance is not just, there's no like normal player. Like, oh yeah, he was a Pro Bowler twice and played for 8 years. Like there's no normal player. So I think the Jets are in a pretty good spot here. It's not like you'd love to be in the top 5 and kind of have your pick of the crop. But the point is, the way I evaluate this draft, it's very short on blue chip talent, but 7 still puts you in position where you will get a blue chip talent if you don't overthink it.
Underdog wildcard weekend. I had a nice hit last week, a 4-player hit.
Whoa.
Aaron Rodgers throw a touchdown, Geno Smith over, Mike Evans over, Derrick Henry over, higher. Play wildcard weekend. Use promo code Badlands. How you feeling about these matchups on this weekend, CR? What are you thinking?
Well, I feel like Russell Wilson unders have, helped pay my mortgage on some of these as well. That's what I'm feeling really good about. So I would start there, and you got to keep an eye on the weather in some of these. You got a Denver offense that's young going to Buffalo. What's that going to look like? And I know the adrenaline wants us to play overs, and I do it as much as anybody. But I think there's going to be some really sneaky unders in the opening round of the playoffs.
Check out Underdog Fantasy with promo code Badlands for a deposit match today. So here's my casual, just started looking into the draft takes, and tell me what I'm missing and what's wrong. This is from a Jets fan POV. I don't want to take a cornerback at 7, so I don't.
Neither do I.
Johnson.
Neither do I.
I'll ride with Eccles, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Just not into it.
You already got 2 good corners.
Exactly. To make Dan proud and to make you proud, I am very into Mason Graham because I'm just so disgusted from watching Kinlaw and Clemens and everything around Quinnen and WMD that to have someone who plays hard and is a game wrecker next to Quinnen, I'm excited by, and I feel like the value is very good at 7 there. I will never be mad about a playmaker at 7, so I like McMillan. I like Warren, I feel like, more than most just because, man, he's big, he catches everything, and the Jets have not had a tight end, and you need a tight end to compete. Look at all the teams who will be competing for a Super Bowl this year, and look at their resources.
That's a good take.
End. You need it. You just can't get by with just Conklin. Conklin's a perfect number 2 tight end. He is not a starting tight end for a dynamic offense in today's NFL. I'm not sure Ruckert's an NFL player. I'm not sure Yabo is an NFL player. You get a guy like Warren, and he is anywhere near what Brock Bowers was this year. That makes life so much easier, and you're so much less stressed out in a world where you lose Devontae Adams. I like Carter. I don't have a problem with them beefing up their pass rush, and there's always room for pass rushers. So that's kind of where my head's at for the names. It seems like Banks wouldn't be there, and I don't know if there's any other offensive lineman that I should be aware of, but that's my early casual. Those are my early casual takes. If someone's like, yeah, that's about it.
I think they're good takes. I think that, one, I'm with you. The corner conversation, one, I don't want the position. 2, Will Johnson can be a superstar, but he also was injured this year and the play dropped off in 2023. We're like, why do I have to take that risk when other blue chips positions I like better are on the board? So that's, and I'm sure he could very well be in play. Like, that wouldn't shock me. He had massive grades this summer coming into the season. Banks, I'm finishing tackles this week at my first rankings. Well, summer scouting rankings, first rankings, and then final rankings is how we do it. So these are my in-between rankings. I still think he's a tackle. A lot of people are unsure. Will Campbell's the other top offensive lineman from LSU. I don't think he's a tackle. I think he's very good. I don't think he's a tackle. So Banks, the Jets actually at 7, I think Banks would be there. I think where the O-line run is going to go nuclear is the Saints at 9 and the Bears at 10, to the point where you might be able to flip back to those, grab an extra pick and take Warren, which is a strategy I really like. I just think Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia, he's phenomenal. 7's a little rich for me for a safety. It just naturally is. And once again, it goes back to what else I can get. I have gravitated towards Tet McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, because now you have an infrastructure where Garrett Wilson, silky smooth route runner, and plays inside outside. McMillan, true outside wide receiver, 6'5", 215 pounds, jump ball, red zone beast. You have the perfect 1-2 punch at wide receiver that complement each other. You have a good offensive line. If you bring back Morgan Moses, and you could still take a tackle on day 2.
Got good running backs.
You got good running backs where, what did I say on the podcast? This is going to be an organization that in the next 2 years, they're going to have a young quarterback they're trying to develop. For the first time, I feel like, although to be fair, Mark Sanchez came into a decent situation. Not elite, but decent. They knew how to run the ball. The pass game needed some work until they got Braylon. A young quarterback would walk into a room where it's like, damn, this is pretty good, all things considered. So that's why I like McMillan. He's one of the best players in the draft, and the Jets need a wide receiver if Devontae Adams isn't back. You just kind of rule out Travis Hunter because he's just so damn good. I can't see a world where he's there, and that's kind of it. I mean, that's kind of it. There's not really a lot of Jalen Walker, the edge linebacker from Georgia. His name will be thrown around in the top 10, but after that, I mean, what's nice about this is it's a little cut and dried. If you're someone like us,
pool.
Yeah, it's you this player will be in the draft guide and have a million words written up on them, and you're going to hear us talk about this player 40 times before he's a New York Jet because it's a small pool. And it's, dare I say, it's almost hard to screw up.
Careful.